Hi guys, how you doing? You can't see my bump, but I am 24 weeks plus 1 day today, and I'm getting bumpy. It is a proper bump now, which I can't really show off here without climbing on things, which I'm not going to do. So yeah, you'll just have to trust me on that.
Got right off climbing, haven't you?
Yeah, right off climbing stairs, climbing into bed, out of bed. All of those things are rubbish. So yeah, it's the 18th of December. It's been a while since we've done our last one of these. Apologies for that. Just the world's been a little bit crazy, and we've struggled to sort of find time to sit down and have a chat. So we've got quite a lot to catch up on, really. But yeah, so 24 weeks now, so comfortably in the, well into the second trimester, approaching third, really. In fact, I've got my, next week on the 23rd, I've got my midwife appointment for my 25-week midwife appointment, week 25 even. And we've had, quite a while back actually, our 20-week, well, some people call it the 20-week scan, it's the anomaly scan. Ours was actually scheduled for around about week 19. Just, I guess scheduling, just they fit you in as close to then as possible. So we've had that. Thankfully all was good. I think I probably would have led with that otherwise, but yeah, they in that scan, well, we'll go into it, but yeah, it's so comfortably in second trimester. Last time I spoke to you, I was grumpy because I was still feeling rough. I feel less rough. I won't say I feel good because that would be a massive exaggeration, but I'm not thoroughly miserable in the same way that I constantly was thoroughly miserable for about the first 19 weeks.
Well, you were feeling sick and you were off your food for a long time.
Yeah.
And now we're at the point where you kind of regained appetite.
Yeah.
And that has kind of coincided with Christmas.
Yeah.
Or the run up to Christmas. And so that's a good excuse for indulgence, isn't it? And you're eating for two. And I'm indulging with you. So I'm eating for two, but there's still only one of me. And that...
I think you're still eating for two more so than I am, because that's not a diss on you, but although I've got my appetite back, as bump has increased, I'm already feeling the sort of lack of space in there. So actually I seem to get full quicker.
So you've got an appetite, but then it...
Yeah, I'm enjoying my food, which is a godsend, and I can eat and I enjoy eating. But it doesn't seem to take as much food before I feel quite full. And I find that I'm worse when I eat quite a lot late in the day. So I'm trying to have my dinner a bit earlier in general nowadays, because we're normally quite bad. We eat dinner about sort of 9, 10 o'clock quite regularly.
If that.
Yeah, sometimes later. But yeah, trying to do that earlier, because after my evening meal, I'm a big... bloated, uncomfortable, gassy blob.
So it'll put us in good stead though if like when we sort of like when the kid's like old enough to be like, we've got to feed it and get it to bed and then we'll have our dinner.
It keeps calling her it and it bothers me. We know she's a she. Let's call her she, shall we?
Alright. Well,
when we feed it, when it gets bigger.
I think maybe we let it determine what it is once it gets
we let them determine what they are then, but not it.
So old Sproggins, like we feed old Sproggins and then we put old Sproggins to bed.
Yeah.
And then we have our dinner after, and maybe because we've got to feed them and it takes a little while to get them down or whatever, we end up having our dinner a bit later. Well, we'll be in good stead because that's kind of our habit anyway, to have quite a late dinner.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, we'll just be shattered and going to bed earlier, I suspect.
Just eating off her plate and then... She's not
eating on the go, whatever we can put in us.
Gosh, I found a bit that she chucked on the floor. She obviously doesn't want it. That's mine now.
That
Bedtime.
Would work if we didn't live with quite so many scavenging animals, but I think anything that falls on the floor is going to get yummed up quite quickly.
Yeah.
When she's in a high chair, I've seen all of my friends who have children and have dogs. The dogs know to guard the high chair quite closely because kids throw food a lot.
And that's the thing as well, like, because kids learn, don't they? Babies and toddlers, like, they drop their spoon and you pick it up and they go, oh, this is a good game.
Yeah.
So they're going to learn, if I drop my food, there's the animal's going to come and eat it, and that's going to be fun to watch. I'm feeding the animal.
Yeah.
So...
yeah, that's going to happen a lot. So yeah, so I'm feeling better. I've got a whole new world of new symptoms of things, just I guess with like that comes with just your body changing. So um, I've got a delightful phenomenon that is called pelvic girdle pain, which I don't really like girdle really a thing anymore, but pelvic girdle pain basically. For me, it's a grinding sensation in my right hip. Um, Pelvic girdle pain is a thing that happens during pregnancy, as you might imagine. Sort of all your ligaments, I think I've mentioned before, sort of become a bit stretchier, and your sort of skeletal structure and hip structure starts to change slightly to accommodate for birth. So all your joints and ligaments become slightly less stable than they would normally be and slightly more flexible, which is handy for popping out a baby. It's not so handy for just getting about your business until baby though, and for some people it can cause a bit of pain. Some people it can be quite debilitating. At the moment it's just uncomfortable for me. It's like, and also for some people it's more pain in the ligaments and pain in the sort of muscles. In other people it feels a bit more skeletal. It definitely feels very skeletal to me. It's very much my very lower back, my right hand side, my hip. And if I stand in certain positions, it just goes, ow, that hurt. And it's not entirely predictable when it'll happen, because I can sort of get about. Flat floor is fine, stairs are a bit painful, and sometimes if I just sort of step back, like I noticed the other day I was sort of unloading the dishwasher and just stepping backwards and turning, can't do those two things at the same time. No, not allowed that anymore. So you just have to be a bit more aware of how you move your body, and even so just in bed, turning over in bed has become a challenge. And all of these things are slightly perturbing, because they're how I imagine things being when I've got a huge belly and I'm uncomfortable, but actually it's already there, like getting into and out. I've got a big pregnancy pillow which I love. It's really good because you can sort of cutch in with it, kind of rest bump and boobs on it, and also I can put my leg over it, which seems to stop my hips kind of grinding. But it does mean I've got an extra obstacle to get into and out of bed.
It was your second go of the pregnancy pillow, wasn't it?
Yes, I bought a really cheap one because I didn't know if it was going to work or help me or be uncomfortable. So I thought, get a cheap one in case I don't use it. And that one was decent. It did the job, but actually within weeks of having it, because it was a cheap one, it sort of turned into lumps and had like thin bits. And
so don't scrimp on your pregnancy pillows.
No,
they're good, but get a good one.
You can spend silly amounts on it. I didn't actually spend silly amounts even on the second one, but don't go for the absolute cheapest, because actually if you need to buy another one in a few weeks, it's not worth it.
Get a good one. You get what you pay for, but don't be a fucking financial idiot. Is essentially the advice. Is that fair?
I think that's fair. Yeah.
Right, cool.
But yeah, so it's really good. I found it really helpful, but it's a bit of a mixed bag on whether people find them helpful or not. It kind of, I guess, depends on how you sleep. I've struggled a little bit because I'm used to sleeping on my stomach, which is no longer an option. And so trying to get used to sleeping in a different position to what you're comfortable with is a bit of a challenge anyway. And then doing it with extra sort of discomfort. Also, I didn't realise this, you're not supposed to sleep on your back if you're pregnant. I don't think it matters too much when you're not too big, but as baby gets bigger, the amount of weight that baby will then be pressing down onto all of your insides can be quite bad for you. It can sort of cause blockages in your digestion, all sorts of other bits and bobs. So lying on your back is a no-no. Lying on your stomach isn't actually a no-no, but it's just desperately uncomfortable, so nobody would. There are people, like there are things you can get apparently that are pillow, like sort of things you put on top of your mattress that have got like a big hole in them so that you can lie on it and have your bump in, which if money was no object I probably would invest in, because oh god, it'd be so nice to just sleep in a comfortable position. But yeah, so I'm kind of adapted to that. But getting into and out of bed with this big V-shaped pregnancy pillow, well, it's more of a long U shape. It's great, but yeah, just sleeping, turning over, getting into and out of bed, already a challenge, which I imagined being the case when I'm really big. But like, yeah, it's already happening. I suspect that level of discomfort and that level of like the pelvic girdle pain, both of those are going to get just progressively worse as I get bigger, I suspect. And I've just steeled myself for it. I've hit a bit of a wall now of really missing my pain medication. Because yeah, up until now, like in my first sort of several months, it was more the sort of feeling pregnancy sick that was getting me down, like not being able to really eat and just so fatigued and all of that. That has subsided, but I guess because of the extra strain on my body, my fibro symptoms are starting to rear their ugly head a bit. I'm quite achy, I'm quite sore, no position is comfortable, moving feels unfeasible largely. It's all quite quite grim.
Obviously, like, you go through a stage and then you get another stage that's unpleasant, and then, but in a different way. But like, it's all finite and there's an end in sight, and you're kind of like, you're in it now. It's not like you can kind of opt out of any of it, but you're kind of there. Like, and this isn't, I'm not asking this in like a serious family planning type way, but just as like a gut instinct of like how you're feeling or how pregnancy makes you feel. How do you feel about like the prospect of going, oh, I might want to do this again someday to get a subsequent child?
More fool me, bring it on, is actually how I feel, because although it's, don't get me, at times it's fucking hellish, but I've got to, I think the second trimester, this might be part of the reason why people sort of talk about it being so good, because I don't, some bastards, I've mentioned this before and I'll probably keep mentioning it, said that I was going to feel fantastic in my second trimester. That's bullshit. But
it might be
there are some lovely perks of second trimester, which are giving me a real boost and actually so much helping with how good I feel about it, because so much more connected with baby now, because I think we mentioned in our last vlog that there were little hints of movement starting to happen, and that was very exciting, but it also felt quite sort of abstract and kind of, oh, is that what's going on there? Now, oh, she's kicking up a storm in there. She is doing the can, little cartwheels. She's all over the shop. And it feels like that. It feels like, oh, there's a person moving in my belly, which is a weird sensation that I can't really, like, it does feel how you'd imagine something independent of you moving in your abdomen, which, when you know it's a baby that you adore and love, is lovely, but it is a bit like, oh, that feels a bit like, John Hurt in Alien. It's all a bit like,
I don't know, because that's supposed to be the thing, isn't it? Like, as a man, you sort of go, I never have to go through all the pain of pregnancy, but I never know the experience of like having that baby inside you. Or
you felt a few kicks now, though, aren't you?
It was a bit horror movie. I'm not sure. Alright, I'm alright with that. It's okay.
It's weird. It is a weird thing. I actually now love it. When she's doing it, it gives me a real, it really, really makes her feel so much more real and so much more tangible. And it fills me with a big bubble of love. It's lovely. But it is actually, just if you're just looking at it objectively as the sensation, proper fucking weird, mate. Like, it's now got to the stage where Chris can feel movement as well.
Very occasionally.
Very occasionally. So I can feel it all the time. And she still has to sort of be in the right position, and I have to be in the right position. But also sometimes I can see it now, which is weird. Like, particularly when I'm lying down in the bath. But that might just be because I'm looking.
What happens a lot is Ellie will be like, right, oh, quick, she's doing it now. Put your hand on my stomach. And I go, oh, okay. And then nothing.
She does that on purpose, I'm sure.
Takes after Poppet the cat, because Poppet is like, sometimes Poppet is really affectionate with me, but she
only on her terms though.
Yeah, but sometimes she would just completely give me the cold shoulder and like make me feel like a piece of shit for existing in her world.
That's cats.
No, but she's particularly.
Yeah, she is particularly.
No, she's lovely. Like, sometimes she loves me. I know she loves me really, but she's.
But yeah, very much. As soon as she's doing it, and I'll get a few really big ones. I'll be quick, put your hand on there. You have had a few though that have been distinctive. Oh yeah, I felt that for sure, and that's lovely when that happens. But yeah, like I say, I can sometimes see them, which is really weird. Like it gets much weirder. Like the bigger I get, where sometimes, like towards the end, you can actually sort of tell which bit it is. Like, oh, that looks like a hand, that looks like a foot, that's where the head is. It's not like that. So weird. But
I feel like the human body should be. It feels like that's too fragile that they can get to that. Do you know what I mean?
No.
Like there should be more stuff in between or something. I don't know.
No.
Because that's like through womb as well as muscle and skin?
Yeah,
Push
it's all of
do
it.
that?
Well, yeah, it's all well, I guess everything gets stretched and it's like a big balloon. Like, so it all gets thinner and you can see. But
I was thinking about that. You know, you get like bodybuilders
yeah,
that are all muscly and like six-packy.
yeah.
Do you think the baby gets a bit squashed because there's too much like muscle? Like there's too.
No, well, I think that's part of how all of the like you literally your muscles and ligaments stretch more when you're pregnant. So actually, it's probably quite frustrating for sort of athletes because everything goes looser. And I imagine training that back's more of an issue, but that's not a problem I'm going to have because I do not have any tone anyway. But I imagine it all just loosens up. But yeah, it will feel different. I've got to the stage now where my abdomen feels different. Like along the sides, it's starting to feel like quite taut, and I can almost feel the stretched ligaments, sort of, particularly on my sides. So my belly's still got a bit of squidge in it, which isn't going to go anywhere. On that note, though, so I'm 24 weeks and 1 day in now. I've only gained 9 pounds still now. Like I thought I'd be gargantuan by now. But
Time.
I know it will. But yeah, little Babbins, I checked on my little pregnancy app, which I use Pregnancy Plus, which is a really good app. I would recommend it. It sort of gives you like week by week what's going on, and you can track certain things, and it's a really handy app. It gives you like a little update on what's going on. You can track her size and everything. Today she is anywhere from 1.4 to 2.2 pounds heavy now at 24 weeks. Also, interesting landmark 24 weeks. Reasonable chance for being viable at birth now. If oh, God forbid, she can definitely stay in there a lot longer. But if it were to happen that I were to go into very premature labour, because of the advancements in neonatal care, actually, it's now considered not like which she's past the sort of scale. There have been babies younger that have survived being born before now, which is like blows my mind because it's like there can't be a lot of babies. They must be so tiny. But so that's quite a good landmark. That feels like a good landmark to be at because it just sort of feels like, oh God forbid, at least she'd have a shot.
It's like if you're at uni and you're doing and you hand your coursework in, and you're like you get a good grade on your course.
So even if I fuck it up entirely from here on in,
I've got a C. I've got my 2-2. It's in the bag.
Okay.
We've got a 2-2 baby in the bag, and then hopefully we can,
Well, nothing's in the bag, but
okay.
But yeah, it's sort of much better options.
On course for a 2-2.
Yeah. So that's sort of encouraging. Obviously we don't want it to go that way. And all being well, I will be pregnant for a good old long while yet.
Apologies to anyone watching who didn't go to university and didn't understand that metaphor, by the way. If it makes you feel any better, I'm in massive debt and it's never made me any money. So, never helped my career.
Yeah, neither did mine, really.
No. Degrees are bullshit.
But I've got an awful lot of debt to show for it, so that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. So that's a nice landmark to be past, I think. I have, I think I mentioned it before, or I don't know if I mentioned it on here or if I just sort of mentioned it in passing on our other vlog actually, but I've started watching quite a lot of One Born Every Minute. Which, if you don't know, is a sort of docu-series that we have in the UK. They probably do them internationally, actually, but where each series will be set in a different maternity unit of different hospitals, and it'll be the story, usually 2 or 3 couples, or women, usually couples, having a baby over the course of an episode.
Never just men, is it?
Never just men.
Sexist.
And it sort of goes over the story of sort of them once they get to the hospital and leading up to the birth, and they do little interviews with them before and after and stuff. There was one that I watched. Like a few people have said, "Oh, that's a bad idea. Don't do that." And I was like, I don't think it is though. Personally, I want to know as much as possible, understand what they're talking about when they refer to sort of things that might happen during labour. I'm sort of voracious in wanting to know everything. There's a cat about to annoy us, so sorry if you can
carry on
him.
talking about one every minute because I don't watch it, so you crack on. I'll feed a cat. Hello.
And also, I think seeing women give birth, although obviously it's pretty intense, I think it's worth knowing what you're in for. And also there's a huge variety in how women seem to handle it. Some women seem to just take to it like a duck to water, and others not so much. And it just kind of prepares you for, like, this is what it could go like, and this is what, like, literally no problems whatsoever, but these are things that could go wrong, and this is what happens if they use forceps, and this is what happens if they have to take you for a C-section, whether that's elective or whether that's an emergency one or anything like that. And I think it's good to watch, because I've been reading books, I've been sort of absorbing all my information, but actually just watching real people go through it is encouraging. And actually every single one of them always seems at the end, when they're holding their baby, it's all worth it, even if it might have been a fucking nightmare getting there. So I actually get quite a lot out of watching it. But there was an episode that I watched this week, which was hit me a little harder than any of the others had, and it was because it was an episode with 2 children that had been born very prematurely. So the one set was a set of triplets, and the 3 triplets had all made it, but one was still very ill, and so had been in the sort of neonatal intensive care unit for several months, whereas the other 2 had actually gone home. So they were raising 2 of their triplets at home, but visiting one in the hospital. So that was quite emotive, as you'd imagine. He did get out in the end, it was all good. And there was another couple who'd had very, very premature twins at 21 weeks. And I didn't know you could have babies at 21 weeks. Unfortunately, one of the twins did not make it, but the other did. And Christ, she was tiny. And she was a little fight, and she was doing well. And then at the end of the episode, she went home. That was quite a potent one for me, because it was younger than Bump is now. And seeing that in the incubator, and then holding her little hand, and her tiny, tiny little hands sort of clinging onto their fingers and stuff, and it was just like, oh, that's a bit real, that's a bit relatable. And but I think even those sorts of things, it's worth knowing about and being prepared for, and accepting that they could happen, but also trying not to desperately panic about them happening, because currently, because of COVID, which is really rearing its ugly head around here, the rates are shocking around here. We've got several different local hospitals. The closest ones to us are the Royal Gwent and the Grange. There's also Neville Hall, and there's sort of going a bit further afield, there's sort of Abergavenny and things like that. 2 out of the 3 closest maternity units have closed.
Oh, that's the door.
Oh, that's the door. I'll just pause and we'll come back. Apologies. Sorry, we ordered pizza and it came sooner than I was anticipating.
I do not apologise.
So, excuse us, that was a little pizza break, so I'm slightly well fed now. So, a little bit uncomfortable already, but there we go. So yes, so I was talking about the maternity units nearby,
Yes,
which COVID has, due to staff sickness and staff self-isolation, I am assuming, have had to close. So they're sending basically everybody who would have gone to either Neville Hall or the Royal Gwent. All of them are going to the Grange, which is a bit of a worry, to be honest, because that's 3 hospitals worth of mothers and babies all in one hospital, which I imagine is rather stressful. Were I due sooner, I think I'd be very panicky. As such, I'm just tentatively terrified. But yeah, it's sort of not great, because it's a sign of sort of how much strain the NHS is generally under at the moment. And I don't want to get too much into sort of COVID related things. We've got a whole other vlog for that, but this is where it's affecting baby related things. So it's relevant. So yeah, so that is a bit of a concern. we're basically, as I said, the rates have skyrocketed around here lately. So we're well into a second wave. Actually, locally, we're doing worse currently than in the first wave. There's more people in hospital with COVID now than there were then. And it's going up. It's not slowing down. And we've got Christmas looming. So that's likely going to mean more people mixing and a bigger spike just after. So in terms of sort of how that affects maternity stuff, that's obviously additional strain on the NHS generally, but additional strain on maternity services, which is a bit of a panic because you don't want to sort of be turning up to give birth and there's not enough midwives, really.
Or we don't want to be in a situation where I'm not allowed to kind of be there.
They've, thankfully, in this sort of second wave of everything, they seem to be sticking to their guns in terms of they've realised that it's too detrimental to not have the other halves there for the birth and for important scans. Unfortunately, any further scans I have, you don't get to come to.
No.
But you could come to the 12-week and the 20-week scan.
Is the private scan place open?
I think so.
Is it going to be open after Christmas?
I don't know. I'll have to check. I think they don't come under, because everything now, we're going into tier 4 restrictions from the 28th in Wales. Tier 4 in Wales basically means everything's shut. Very similar to the first lockdown, slightly different in a few bits and bobs, but essentially, to all intents and purposes, basically the same as the initial lockdown. So all non-essential retail, all hospitality, everything like that is shut. The private scan place that we've been to a couple of times already, I think because they come under the healthcare bracket, because actually we had a scan booked with them for around about 16 weeks, which I think was where we had the gender, the sex. We found out the sex. That was actually during the firebreak lockdown, but we were allowed to go because it was deemed healthcare. So although other things were shut, but actually some retail was still open then. But anyway, it was certain things weren't allowed to be open and certain things were. I imagine this is stricter, but I imagine they're still under healthcare. So I would have thought they're probably still allowed to open. So yeah, I guess maybe we could splash out and have another scan. But I might not actually need to have other scans on the NHS anyway, because 2 is the standard. I sort of assumed that they just kind of scanned you as you go on, but actually once they've done the sort of 12-week scan and then the anomaly scan to check for any anomalies, funnily enough, it's not sort of standard that you have ongoing scans, but they will do them if your measurements are slightly off, or if anything seems to be going amiss or going astray or going wrong, they'll scan you, but it's not sort of standard. You don't have sort of set scans throughout after the 20-week one. So the next things I've got, so we should talk about our anomaly scan, actually, on that note. So we've had it, and no anomalies. So that's good. I'm so glad, though, that we did do our private scan there, because the anomaly scan, which is usually, as I say, around 20 weeks, is the scan that on the NHS you may be able to find out the sex of the baby. But they couldn't really confirm in this one. No particular sort of dramatic reason, but just Babbins was not cooperating, was not in a good position to check what was going on in her nether regions. So they did ask, sort of, do you want to know the sex, if we can find out? And we said, well, we think we know, because we've had a private scan. And she sort of went, oh, well, you can't trust those, but you know, because they're not qualified. They're just...
I don't like to throw shade on the NHS, but she was a little bit sniffy, wasn't she, about our private scan? And then she was unable to provide the information that the woman from the private scan had given us.
I don't think it was her fault. Like, I think if baby's not in the right position, baby's not in the right position. But I'm as confident as I can be that the first scan lady got it right, because she was so confident. She did sort of say before she actually even put the sort of wand on my tummy, she said, if baby isn't in the right position, I might not be able to tell you the sex. It does sort of depend, but we'll do our best. But then when she saw the baby, she went, perfect position, literally legs akimbo, I can see everything. I don't like to say 100%, but basically 100%, I can tell you what it is. Do you want to know? And it's a girl. but yeah, the lady at the NHS one sort of went, yeah, no, I can't. Basically, the best she could give us was, I can't see any obvious boy bits, so yes, it's probably a girl. But she certainly wasn't making any strong declarations that she was certain on that whatsoever. So I'm glad we did the private scan. But yeah, she did. They had all sorts of things that they check in there, and you can sort of. There were two of them. There was the lady who was sort of actually doing the scan and looking at the screen and sort of taking measurements, and she was sort of dictating certain checklists of criteria of things they need to check to this other lady who was inputting them into a machine. So they check all sorts of things there, and they're checking all of the internal organs of babbins, checking measurements for various different things, all sorts, really loads. It was quite a long list, but yes, nothing sort of seemed out of order. I think they also checked for things like cleft palates or any kind of signs of sort of growth abnormalities or anything like that. Check that sort of all of the internal organs are there and look like they're sort of growing in the way that they should be. Check sort of the heart structure, all of that sort of stuff, which is amazing that they can do it, because look to sort of amateur eyes doesn't look like anything looking at those ultrasound scans. Like, there's a lot of blobby bits and I can't really tell what's happening. But I will say also, secondly, I'm really glad that we went for the private scan, because you really do get to see more in the private scans than you, particularly as the mum-to-be. Because in the private scans, they've got it all sort of projected onto a big wall for you, and you can just look at it. Whereas, obviously, when it's NHS, their priority isn't you seeing the baby, it's them seeing the baby, which is fair. But I'm lying on a bench and she's got a screen, which she did sort of turn towards me a couple of times, but I couldn't really see at all. And I had to, at one point I had to turn and face the other wall anyway, because she needed me to change position.
I didn't realise until afterwards that you couldn't see anything.
I could see a bit.
I had a better angle. I didn't realise it was out of position for you, but also because, like, I think like most people, my ideas of what these scans are like is from TV and movies, right? And so and that's the focus on that isn't on the baby's health. It's about the parents seeing the baby and being excited and whatever. That's so the fact that it wasn't quite like that. It isn't
quite like that. It's a lot less sentimental and a bit more sort of getting the job done kind of vibe.
I don't know if part of that is kind of rushing people through and COVID and not wanting people hanging around too
I think
much.
a bit of everything there really. But so it's I would say, like, they're not cheap, the private scans, but I would say they are very good for a bonding sort of experience with the baby, and to just get a good look and to sort of I particularly, because I really I didn't get a good look at baby in the anomaly scan. Like, I got a, but it was, like I say, sort of made me turn and face the other way at one point. But yeah, just the angle I was at, sort of, she did turn it towards me, but I couldn't really see. It was like looking at a monitor slide on. It wasn't great. So she did the job. She did what she was supposed to do. I'm not dissing her at all, but it's just, if you want to have that lovely experience that you imagine from watching films and TV, where you're gonna, there's the baby's head and there's the like it's not really like that. Or at least our experience wasn't. I guess it might also depend on the sonographer and how sentimental they are and how much time they've got. She might have been running behind, and as you say, they might be, because of extra COVID pressure at the moment, trying to get people in and out as quickly as possible. There's a different cat nagging us now.
Whining away. Oh, you're so pathetic.
So that's I would say that they are worth it if you can afford to do so, but they're not a cheap hobby. Think about it. But I would personally, if you can afford to do so, I would recommend them highly. Because the lady who did ours, her name was Heather. She was just lovely, really, really nice, and just so reassuring. Just really helps you bond. I'm less sort of keen to have more done, because now I've got that lovely feeling of her wriggling about in there, and it all feels like I can tell that she's okay because she's kicking me, which is a sign that everything's like she's moving around and all is well. But obviously you don't have that, so if you wanted to have a little visit and see her again, I wouldn't be averse to it, because it's a lovely experience, but it is pricey.
One thing we did get at the NHS visit was we got photos of the scans, which you do have to pay for. And they've got quite a weird sort of system.
I didn't understand the system at all. It was very odd.
You have to get a token.
Yeah, it was. You've got to pay for them, which is fair because obviously they can't just be giving it stuff away for free. But they were like, you've got to pay. You've got to have the exact change. Because it's like a machine. So again, fair enough. But you had to get a token from a machine. Pay get her so she it was weird.
And you give the token to the woman,
and
I guess that's your proof that you've paid.
Yeah.
And then they just get all the money out of the machine at a later point.
Yeah. So because you had to give it to an actual person, why can't
feels like you could have an IZET or contactless card or a QR code or something in this day and age. It seemed like a very old-fashioned, sort of something from the 1970s almost.
Yeah, it was very old-fashioned.
Like you might see in Call the Midwife, and then I realised Call the Midwife isn't set in the 70s before
anyone writes it.
I know. Before people complain in the comments. But the phrase on my mind was before people write in.
Yeah.
Because this is you're essentially watching Heartbeat with Tony Hart. That's what this is. And in case you thought it was anything else, this is Heartbeat. Don't worry, we'll get to the gallery. I realise it's been an unusual episode, but and this is this tiny little beige box. Everything in the NHS. You're going into everything looks a bit run down, doesn't it? Or not everything, but
Well, it won't in the Grange when we go there because the Grange is a brand new hospital, which is local.
Just NHS hospitals. I say that this isn't me snobbishly going. Normally, I go to private hospitals. NHS hospitals are the only hospitals I've ever been to. They're the only ones I can afford. But let's get that clear. But I'm
not sure I agree, but
I just feel like the buildings as well on the outside are quite run down. I'm not complaining about the NHS. I'm just saying, if anything, I can't wait till we get that 350 million a week. That's going to help, isn't it? So anyway, this little box. You have to buy the tokens. There was just one token machine, and it was in the corner of the room. And the token you get is about the quarter of the size of a postage stamp.
Right.
But it was in the corner of the room in the waiting area.
But it all seemed a bit redundant once you're dealing with an actual person instead anyway. Can't you just pay the person?
I know, can't you just have a little cash box in the room, and if it needs to be exact change, fine, but then you just... Anyway, this one thing, it was in the waiting area in the corner, because I went to go and find the ticket, and...
as is the case after any ultrasound scans, desperately needed a wee, so
yes,
I've gone off to a loo.
Toilet. I went to find the token machine, and... It was in the corner in this waiting area, and there were seats, in front of it, so there were people sat there. Now, obviously, even under normal circumstances, that'd be a bit awkward. There's some pregnant woman waiting for a scan, I'd have to be sorry,
can I
just lean over you to kind of put some money into this thing? But with social distancing, I had to be can you move right out of the way?
Leave the room?
I mean, you're a patient, and I'm just here, as a partner, but can you move the hell out of my way so I can put some money in a thing to buy some photographs? And they were very nice about it. The people who were sat there, they were lovely, and they moved. And I was sort of apologetic, and they were like, "Oh, no, it's fine."
Oh, it was in a different, obviously all of these things could vary depending on hospital to hospital and health board to health board. So it might not be the case that if you're in the UK that you'll have the same system, but that's what it was in our local one.
Yeah.
But also the anomaly scan that we did isn't in the maternity department, whereas the first one it was in the maternity. I think also because in the first scan, the 12-week scan, you also have bloods taken and give urine sample and a few other bits and bobs, and had a little chat with a midwife. Whereas this one, they just send you to X-ray. So they send you to the X-ray department. X-ray department sends you to ultrasound. So it wasn't that everybody in that area is a pregnant person having pregnancy scans. There's all sorts of people in there. As it happened, maybe that's all the day that they tend to do.
You're in with the riff-raff, let me tell you.
Well, speaking on behalf of pregnant women, I think I'm also riff-raff. So my standards for personal sort of grooming have plummeted. It's already really hard to shave my legs, guys, and I'm not happy about this because I'm each to your own, whatever your choice is when it comes to personal grooming. If you're a woman, it's up to you whether you have body hair or not. That is entirely your call. I have always preferred to keep my legs shaved, so even when I'm single and it's the middle of winter and nobody's going to see my legs, I still like to shave them because I prefer the feel of shaved legs. Other areas perhaps less so, but you know, you don't need to know that. But
very hairy chest.
but yeah, I like to keep my legs shaved. I'm struggling. Like I can't because I tend to bath now as well. I tend to bath anyway, but I'm particularly having baths instead of showers at the moment because usually I would only shower if I was sort of having to get ready to go out to work, and I'm not working at the moment, so I'll just have a nice long bath at the end of the day. It's slightly easier in the shower because I can sort of lean down and do it, but in the bath I can't lift my legs to like my belly's in the way. So I can do the inside of my legs and the front of my legs fine, but the side of my legs, I can't turn my leg inwards to get to it to so I'm having to actually just like do it by feel rather than by sight. And that's only going to get hard. I think you're going to be on leg shaving
That's
duty.
how I do my face, is by feel.
Well, good for you. But yeah, I've always been able to see what I'm doing and do it. But yeah, I can't do it. But yeah, like sort of trying to do the back of your legs. So yeah, it's quite a challenge. And that's only going to get harder. So I think you are going to end up being my leg shaver. And yeah, when I used to, a few years ago, I worked in a beauty salon / health spa. And they had a sort of like little business that was a mummy and baby spa. So did like specialised in had like little playpens and things so that you could bring your baby while you were coming to have like beauty treatments done and stuff. And also did like pregnancy massage and things like that. There would be a flurry of women getting close to their due date coming in and getting everything waxed, because obviously there's going to be a lot of people looking down there, and I guess you want a nice, neat area, which I totally understand the thinking of, particularly if anyone's going to be in there with like cutting things or anything. Like you want a nice, neat work area, but also nobody's giving a damn about the presentation of what's going on down there when there's a baby coming out of it. I'm pretty sure. Like, honest to God, nobody's going to be giving a damn about whether or not you've got hair or not, surely. You've got bigger things to worry about right then. But then saying that, I will probably go for a bikini wax before.
Really?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Well, I won't be able to deal with it myself because I won't be able to bloody reach. Yeah, it's bonkers. I've got a bit of a bump, but it's going to get loads bigger. And I already can't reach bits of me that, that's never been a problem. It's quite disconcerting. So I do draw that, like, you might be able to, I might have you on leg shaving duty, but I'm not having you on bikini duty. Like, that seems unwise. Like, we don't need to do that.
I feel like I've got a reasonable track record in that area.
What, a bit of waxing bikini lines?
No, not waxing bikini.
Just shaving, trimming.
Just the general bikini area of you.
You do well down there, but I'm not letting you down there with cutting implements.
Okay. Do you use cutting implements for waxing?
Well, no, because I don't actually wax myself. I go to a professional for that.
I see.
But yeah, so that's
We've got plenty of candles.
This is why I'm not letting him down there for that. Like, no, you can just you can be down there.
Like that film with Madonna.
You can just.
I've not seen it. I don't really know what it's about.
Yeah, no, none of the practical duties down there, just the pleasurable ones. How's that?
Don't cry for me, Argentina. That's the one, isn't it?
Why are you doing bits from Evita?
Because I was pretending that was the Madonna film I was talking about. Well, I was really talking about the sexy one where she has the candle wax melting thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just being...
All right. Well, we've banged on a bit again, as ever, as we always do. I haven't even
mentioned there's a new Paul McCartney album out.
That doesn't need to be on the pregnancy blog.
Well, but it's tangentially relevant.
Is it?
Yes, it is.
There's actual pregnancy-related things that we haven't mentioned. But
as a dad.
Yeah.
Like, you kind of.
Where's this going?
You sort of when you're having a baby, and suddenly you realise maybe there's some things in your life that like you go, I would have done that with a bit of the old disposable income.
Right.
And then suddenly you go, maybe there isn't disposable income anymore. Maybe got to think about the baby and future and things like that.
Okay.
And maybe there's a few less kind of things you can treat yourself to, or whatever it might be in your life.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
And that's fine.
That's all very relevant to imminent parenthood. Yeah.
Yes.
Where does Paul McCartney come in?
So he's got a new album out today.
Right.
And in the past when we were growing up, because we are both older than we look, when we were growing up,
I'll take that.
you had to like
I'm really old.
You had to actually own. You had to go out and spend your money and buy a thing.
Yeah.
And own a thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you couldn't. Like maybe there'd be something on the radio. Maybe one of the songs would be played on the radio.
Yeah.
But or maybe do a TV performance. You'd be interviewed and you'd play one
What's
of the songs.
this got to do with Paul McCartney?
Yeah, because what I'm saying is, like, you'd be like, oh, if I want to hear the new Paul McCartney album, I have to go out and buy it.
Right.
But I can't. But if you sort of go, oh, maybe I can't justify that at the moment. But
I see.
We now live in a world where you can just go on Spotify,
yeah.
you know, and YouTube and things, and you
so
can
you've
just...
got less justification for spending money on it, even though it's something that normally you would have
bought.
Well,
I haven't bought the last few Paul McCartney albums because of streaming and things.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, it's a bit like I used to say about like when we were in lockdown. Like, there's never been a better time to be in lockdown because we've got access to streaming services and, you know, and Kindles and all sorts of things where you don't have to leave the house and you can have entertainment and it's all lovely and there's YouTube and things and I think like because it makes it easier to be a parent having all this modern kind of stuff and like my friend from work Helen was saying like, you know, when you're rocking the baby make sure you got your phone with you, to her daughter. You know, make sure you get your phone with you, but sort of going, oh, I remember like when we had you know, and you were crying for
just
all
stuck there.
night, and you just stood there and you had no entertainment and nothing to whatever. And like, whereas now you can like take your phone if you're just rocking a baby, you can still do something. And I think like in a world that is like increasingly scary.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's not good out there right now, guys.
No, I mean this was supposed to be the last good year before Brexit. What happened there?
Well, fuck that, haven't we?
Yeah. And
that's
now,
for another
and now
blog.
we still have to do Brexit. So, like, in a world that is quite scary and horrible in some ways, and unpredictable, like, I think it's nice sometimes to accentuate the positives of this world we're living in. Like the fact that without me having to go out and spend money,
right, you can still
I
enjoy
can still
Paul
listen to the
McCartney.
Paul McCartney album, and that's good.
And
As a parent, that's good, isn't it? You know.
That is the most tenuous pile of bullshit I've ever
heard. I think, you know, as parents, it's nice to be like, we're modern parents and we have advantage of all these modern amenities and technologies and things that our parents didn't have, and that's cool. I think that's something to be positive and grateful for.
Yes, I agree on that, but I think the Paul McCartney album probably could have been discussed on the other blog.
Well, we haven't really discussed it, have we?
No, we're not going to either.
All right.
Because, yeah, we're over 45 minutes now, so actually there's pregnancy-related things that I'm not going to go into because we've talked on for too long. I don't know what that was about. But yes, so...
I think maybe, instead of always having my bit at the end and then you being like, well, that wasn't really the thing, maybe we put my bit, like, bury it in the middle and then you can do some more pregnancy stuff
you
after.
could have piped up with it at any point, but I would have still been like, what's this got to do with babies?
When you were talking about other things, it was all flowing. Like.
But yes, we'll talk about in an upcoming vlog, which hopefully won't be as long a wait this time, sorry. But yeah, I've got my midwife meeting next week. And then in January, I can't remember the date, possibly the 15th, but middle of January somewhere, I've got my obstetrics assessment. Now, so that relating to my having fibromyalgia means that the obstetricians will decide whether or not I can have a midwife-led birth or whether I have to have an obstetrics-led birth. So that's with the doctors and the consultants. Excuse me. I'm hoping that they say I can go midwifery for a few different reasons. But yeah, basically, obviously, if I need the obstetricians, I will take them. But I would prefer to go midwifery because that just means that some of my birthing options are slightly preferable, i.e. water births is what I'm hoping for, which I think I've mentioned previously, which I won't probably be able to have if I'm deemed high risk because they will want instead for me to be in a position where they can monitor the baby throughout labour, which the way they do that is in numerous ways, but usually it's lots of little sensors on your stomach so they can sort of check what's going on in there. You can't have those sensors on your stomach if you're underwater, which is fair. So we'll find out about those, so I will talk about those next time and get into other bits in terms of how I'm doing and how things are progressing. But currently all is well. Just getting increasingly impractical and uncomfortable. But definitely, I think I'm happier than I was early on, and yeah, I think feeling more connected to the baby because baby is now moving. But yeah, we'll also have more to sort of talk on the naming front and some sagas that have gone on there with people guessing things and all sorts of nonsense, which has been a roller coaster. But yeah, all good fun. Loads of stuff that I didn't get around to, including having to call the midwife for a sort of little minor worry, but everything's fine. But I can talk about that next time. So thank you for joining us. Sorry for waffles, but that's how it's going to go. He's not sorry.
I'm not sorry. It is what it is. If you've got this far, you know the format. You're only punishing yourself if you don't like it.
So thank you guys. We will see you next time. Yeah, like and subscribe and share around if you know any other pregos, and we'll see you next time.
There's no shame in it.
Bye.
Bye.